Everyone told me, like, this Riptide, it's easy, man. It's easy. and he was beating the crap out of me.
The amount of disrespect that Levia got, and now people are, I think there's always going to be people like myself, like Ethan Van Sant, that kind of are drawn to the underdog in the history of Flesh and Blood so far. These underdog heroes are always not bad, right?
Welcome to Draw 4, where I draw 4 topics with the best Flesh and Blood players in the community. Today, I am talking to Tommy from the Fresh and Buds podcast. He was on Riptide at the Realm Rumble and got 6-1 all the way to the top 16. Tommy, welcome to Draw 4.
Thanks for having me, Alex. You know, we've known each other for quite some time. I'm happy to get the invite on and to talk a little bit. I will say I did go 6-2, not quite 6-1, but it was enough for a top 16, which was very nice. But thank you for having me on.
Yeah, man. I'm so happy for your result and also to have you on too, because it is so amazing to talk to you now just right before the year's ending, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been a busy 2 years, to be honest, especially for Flesh and Blood and content creation and all that stuff like that. But so much has changed and things continue to change. You know, it feels like we get a big update on how we do Living Legend and certain formats. It's hard to keep up sometimes, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, a lot of things have changed since we first met the Pro Tour in New Jersey, and a lot of exciting things are in front of us for the next year.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very excited. I mean, I want to go to Amsterdam so bad. We were talking about before we started recording, just to hang out with some European buds and have a good time. So hopefully that is in the cards for sure.
Dude, I really hope so. I would love to spend some time in Amsterdam and then get some games on too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't think we've ever played. We've only chatted, so it'd be nice to play.
Exactly. Though for every viewer that is on at the moment, like, we will talk about Riptide for sure. But if any of the viewers are really interested in a deep dive on your deck list and your strategy, I would really like to have them jump onto your channel, because you actually did a Decktech, right?
I did a Decktech, just to kind of some buds were pretty interested about the deck. I don't think there's anything too crazy going on with it. It's very similar to a lot of lists. I definitely got some help from Jesse Harper, who kind of led me in the right direction. And I made changes as the meta changed, and then eventually kind of jumping into the Realm Brawl. I wanted to make sure that I had the best list that I possibly could have. But I talk about all the card choices in that Decktech. And then if anybody has any like matchup specific questions, hit me up on Twitter, hit me up on Discord. I'll answer any questions. You might not be super excited about some of the answers, because sometimes it's just like, well, it's a really bad matchup. You got to hope for the best,
All right. I definitely have your Twitter name on the screen and also down in the description. Awesome. So before we jump into the topics, I was talking to so many players that were at the Realm Rumble. I really want to shout out the Realm games and also want to hear your opinion before we start. Like, how do you like the tournament?
I'm a huge fan of these kind of circuits, right? Because it's an opportunity to kind of get out there and play, and sure, the LSS like sponsored events like the Battle Hardens and the Callings and everything like that is excellent, but it's sometimes cool to go play and just like maybe try to make some money, or like even just like hang out with friends and not really worry about elo. I know a lot of people are worried about that. And the Realm games have done an excellent job. The 20K seemed to have been a hit. I wasn't able to make it for the 20K, but I played in the 10K. And, just talking to everybody that was involved in the 20K, they were like, this is awesome. Everybody was having fun. And we all got our own play mats with our names. It's like such a nice touch. And I'm excited to see what they do with it next year. And I believe they have a lot of great plans, including around the same time next year, which, hey, that's a huge prize pool for just a kind of game store, regional game store to kind of put up. Very cool. Please check them out if you're in the States, or if you're ever traveling abroad and want to kind of get involved with some of these big tournaments.
Definitely. Is there also a stream game that you were on that we can link down below?
No, they didn't stream the 10K. because they were streaming the 20K the whole weekend. But I'm glad, because with my luck, right, they would have put me against, because I did play against Michael Fang in Swiss, and it was a close game, but he eventually, CNC pummeled me enough times that I lost. But my luck, that would have been the game they streamed, so I'm glad they didn't.
All right. So then let's just jump into the first topic and dive into it. Let's talk about how to master heroes that are not played by many players. What is your opinion on that?
Well, that's interesting. I play a lot of Levia, and now I'm playing a lot of Riptide. I think there's always going to be people like myself, like Ethan Van Sant, that kind of are drawn to the underdog. We kind of really we want to be the hero. We want to be the voice for the voiceless or stuff like that. So it's really interesting. These heroes are always, at least, in the history of Flesh and Blood so far, these underdog heroes are always not bad, right? I don't think bad is the best way to put it. It's just they're not primed for the meta. And it's kind of understanding that. Like, we're looking at a meta right now, especially with Levia, right? I think that's a great example. Once Lexi rotated out and Icelander, the old guard of these heroes that kind of just pushed enough past like the standard rate of Flesh and Blood that they were, super powerful and super successful. And now you look at the meta right now, while there's still a lot of powerful decks that can do some really insane things, maybe they're a little bit more tied to variants. I'm looking at Dash.io, I'm looking at, even Fi, right? Like Fi can have, like, if you don't kind of get those nice hands where you can go super wide, it doesn't matter if somebody is out aggroing you. So like Levia has the highest rate on cards, right? Like these numbers that Levia can do have always been really high rate, but kind of tied to the variants. Obviously the printings in Dusk Till Dawn definitely helped.
Yeah.
But now Levia has these really, really incredible numbers. Sure, there's checks and balances there, right? Azalea has excellent on hits, and Dominate, that sometimes Dominate is an unfortunate thing for Levia, because you can only give one card and you want to fill your graveyard with more than one card. So it's very interesting. So I think that mastering these heroes is so important. And this is something that maybe I wish I kind of talked about a little bit more in my deck list, my deck tech. But deck techs are great, right? You get to learn about the cards and what their purpose is in the deck. But in the end of the day, you can't just pick up a deck and perform. It's practice, right? I put in, I think probably 100 games on Riptide before that event, right? And it was a deck that I put away because Lexi had unfortunately made Bullseye Bracers get suspended, and that was an important piece of the puzzle. And then after that, Icelander was big hero on campus, and Frostbites are tough when you want to play a deck where, you don't want to pay any resources ever. You want to play things for zero. So I would say practice is so important in understanding matchups, and you can get like a matchup write up or whatever, somebody explain it to you. But until you get a feel for it, right, it is still a very fluid game. That's the best thing about Flesh and Blood, is there's this back and forth all the time.
Yeah. Right.
And there's a motion to it, motion of the ocean, right? Like it's there. You have to understand that, and the only way you're going to do that is by practice. It's like anything else, really. If you want to get really good at something, you got to just practice, and sometimes it takes other people longer, and some people not as long, but doesn't matter. You got to figure it out for yourself. But that's what my best advice would be. If you want to master a kind of underdog hero, put the work in, right? Understand the deck, and sure, maybe the list isn't as powerful as you want it to be. Tweak some cards. Who cares? It's you're kind of on this journey of discovery as well, and hopefully you land where it should be. Like, I'm playing a very redline aggro version of Riptide. There's so many cool cards that Riptide could play that I'm not even touching yet, because it doesn't make sense for my deck. And I want to get to that point where we can play the really cool stuff and see what we can do with it. But yeah, you got to understand, just practice, I think, is the hugest thing there.
So where are you usually going and testing out your decks? Do you have like a fixed group of people that you're playing with? You're playing online at your local game store?
I guess like the only fixed group of people that I'll play are at like Armory, right? Which, I'm very fortunate to kind of have a pretty strong Armory, skill level in my area. So I get to play a lot of great players. I am busy. I create content. I have a full-time job, and I'm getting ready to get married this year. There's a lot going on in my life. I can't really be on a team because I can't give them the time that they would want from me. So my playing is basically go to Armory, hopefully get some games in there, and then the beauty of Talishar is I got an hour on my hands that I need to kill. I can maybe jam a game or two, maybe 3 if it goes really well or poorly. But so basically it's kind of getting in the reps when you can, right? And that's the reality for a lot of people in like our age group. We just don't have unlimited time and resources, so you have to make it work when you can.
So I think you're a really great example here of players that have not that many time, but then eventually when experience grows over time, you can really also have a moment to shine here with your deck, right? Because even though Riptide is pretty underestimated, right? You really showed that he can make it in today's meta, but not that many players really are taking him even to these events. So he has like not that many participants bringing him, but then also not that many players having even the experience like yourself jamming 100 games with him.
Yeah, it's a risky deck to bring, right? Because there are some abysmal matchups, and there are other decks that are in the meta that have bad matchups, but they are not abysmal. And when I say abysmal, I'm looking at mostly Dromai, which is a still a big piece of the puzzle right now. Certainly the ninjas are kind of helping kind of temper that, and I think that that has allowed Riptide to kind of find a little bit of a spot. Although I understand why people don't want to bring him, and also they want to figure out Riptide, right? It's tough because Riptide does not play, in my opinion, like other Rangers, So I am not surprised to see the Lexi mains not move over to Riptide. Although they should, I think they should try because there are some similarities. But something interesting about Riptide is he kind of breaks that Ranger mold a little bit, where you can block, like let's say you have 4 cards in an arsenal. Your arsenal is Endless Arrow, right? And any Ranger could do this, right? Where they block with their whole hand and then just send Endless Arrow on your turn. And I think in other Ranger decks, that's a very bad turn cycle. I think for some reason, Riptide has the ability to like kind of steal tempo with the traps and that incremental damage. That's not a really bad turn cycle for Riptides, but that's the thing I'm seeing is I think more people need to understand that he's not a Ranger. He's almost like a brute in a way. I don't know. I mean, he looks like one, but yeah, I think people are still a little scared of the Dromai matchup. The Kano matchup is terrible too, but you can, I mean, that's like it's a little gambling, so that's all it is. You gotta hope you don't run into those decks, and if you do, you hope that you can piece together a fast enough win that they can't really stake their claim on the board state and beat you. So that's where I'm at with it.
So what kind of exact tip would you give to a player watching that really wants to master one of these heroes that is not that played widely in the meta?
Well, understand why the hero is good, right? Well, Riptide, I could speak mostly about Riptide and Levia, right? I look at Riptide, very good, can do some really interesting defensive stuff, but also present big aggro turns with really strong on hits. So when you're looking at the meta, and maybe you're looking at like a lot of brutes in the meta, brutes don't really like on hits. I've found that out as a Levia and Rhinar player, is sometimes you just like, I don't want to have to commit my whole hand here because it could prevent me from living for the rest of the game or whatever. So you got to understand why a certain hero is good, right? Riptide has these awesome traps that are good into like ninja, like almost everything a ninja plays, these traps trigger. And then let's say Levia, right? You know, I talked about it earlier where, you know, you have this like super high rate. So if you believe in that deck and you can master the flip at 13 life for Blasmafet, you know, you are playing in reality the most unfair deck in the meta right now, as long as you don't lose to your own blood debt, right? That's always a chance. It happens. So, you know, you understand that. So you just got to understand what is good. And then when you understand what it's good against, you have to understand what it's bad against, right? You know, I've mentioned with Riptide, Dromai and Kano, they're both in the meta a lot. So it is a big risk to bring Riptide. Like if I had brought it to the Brawl and played against, you know, 4 Dromais and 4 Kanos, I would be lucky to go 4-4, right? I would probably be 2-6. So once you understand both of those things, then you can make a decision. Okay, I really like this hero. I need to evaluate the meta, because if the meta is not kind to this hero, it doesn't matter how good you are with it. It's not going to work out, right? Sometimes people that like to play these heroes, myself included, we just want to put our foot down. I'm playing this deck. I'm good with it. I'll figure out a way to play against the bad matchups. If your goal is to win, you gotta take a look at that kind of mentality that you have. So yeah, you gotta analyze the meta, figure out does it make your deck fit in that puzzle, and if it doesn't, look at something else, or just go and have fun. Having fun's an option always. You know, you can always do that if you want.
All right, I also have to say, like, I played a ProQuest this year and I was facing a Riptide. I'm not playing that much myself, but I had no clue. And everyone told me, like, this Riptide, it's easy, man. It's easy. and it was beating the crap out of me.
Oh, yeah. Well, these heroes always get some disrespect, right? You know, it's pretty incredible the amount of disrespect that Levia got. And now people are, oh, you know, I've been learning this matchup. I'll figure out how to beat it, you know, stuff like that. So Riptide does have that, because Riptide can be built in a lot of different ways too, where, you know, is an aggro, are they going to try to fatigue you? Which Riptide can do. I mean, we saw Dagon White get fatigued on stream. He quit the game for the rest of the weekend. I mean, it was something else. Love you, Dagon, if you're listening. But you know, the disrespect is a boon sometimes, right? Because I think oftentimes people will be like, oh, this is an easy win. And that mentality is not a winning mentality, right? You have to treat every opponent with the same respect. And I will say, I played against Michael Fang, who was on Bravo. And Michael was like, I'm worried about Riptide after seeing what happened to Dagon, right? You know, so like, you know, an incredible player and winner, Michael Fang, it was treating the matchup with the correct amount of respect, right, to try to win. So, but that's not everybody. Some people are gonna be like, Riptide, Levia, Teklovasin, whatever. You know, this should be an easy win. And then you sit down. You're the one with the game plan. You've mastered the deck. They have no idea what's going on. You have like a nice little edge. You know, it can't help all the time, but it's an edge.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's something that I am watching time and time again in Flesh and Blood. That the question was right, how to master heroes that not that many players are playing. And that is the beauty in the heroes that are played that often, because you can kind of strangely fastly get all the views on the hero, how the hero's played, what's his strength, why is he so good? What are his weaknesses? And then when you have a hero like Riptide, you are the one with the 100 games, but there are not 50 deck techs out there that you can watch and figure out how to play Lexi as with Riptide.
Yeah.
So you are the one with the advantage in the room, knowing what everybody else is doing, but then not everybody is knowing what you are doing.
Absolutely. You know, it's funny that you mentioned that about like the deck techs being out there. And there's some Riptide content out there, especially when Outsiders came out, but it certainly kind of went by the wayside because it just wasn't a good spot for Riptide to be in the meta. Like, play Lexi. Why not? You know, that's the good Ranger. But yesterday, which was Sunday, I went to a little like win a box tournament at the LGS, and Daniel Rakowski was there, and we got paired up. Daniel was on Levia, and he's like sitting there. He's like, oh no, because he's just testing out Levia. I had your video queued up to like watch and like kind of figure out what Riptide's doing, but I never did it. And he's like, he ended up winning anyway. It was a pretty fun one, but it was kind of funny that he was like, I was thinking about, you know, kind of learning this deck if it's going to be real, you know. So it's nice to get some respect on Riptide's name. That's for sure.
All right, man. Let's close out this topic and get to the next one. And actually, I want to talk in more detail about what happened at the Realm Rumble, like the 10K. Why? Tell us in the beginning what even made your strategy so strong to begin with.
So that weekend was the first weekend without Icelander, if I remember correctly. And that opened up a lot. And I think we saw that with the meta of the 20K and the 10K.
Yeah.
We saw a lot of different decks do well. You know, there was a Riptide, I think, that made top 32 in the 20K as well, and had a chance to make top 8, I believe. You know, just couldn't get there. But when I saw that, the version of Riptide I'm playing, if you watch the Decktech, you'll see it's a lot of zero cost. It's very red line, as I mentioned, and Frostbites are the bane of that. And that was the third really bad matchup, right, that existed in the meta, right? Dromai, Kano, Ice, and two of those three are great meta calls typically because they're so powerful, right? Dromai and Icelander. And then Kano can always sneak in there. Kano players are always going to play Kano. They're going to show up and they're going to, you know, whatever. They're going to go in the tank for 20 minutes and then hopefully kill you, you know? So I was looking at that. I was like, okay, now I don't have the barrier of Frostbites in CC anymore. This is a deck that I know is powerful and I know very well. And I looked at the deck, right? And I made some slight changes, stuff that I thought would help bad matchups, like a little bit better, you know, because looking at something like Dromai, the plan is to race because you just can't, you don't have enough poppers. Even if you had poppers, it really kind of deviates from your plan. So you got to stick to the plan. So I was like, okay, I have this really solid plan. I think there's going to be a lot of ninjas. I think that will keep the Dromais away. I can win the Bravo matchup. It is tough, but I can win it. And then we'll see what happens with Kano, right? You know, if I run into Kano. And I was also really happy with all the Bright Lights hero matchups.
Yeah.
Right? If Tekla doesn't singularity you, I think you can win pretty easily. Dash.io has a lot of targets for your traps. Same with Max. So I was pretty happy with that. So I was like, okay, I will commit to this deck for the 10K, and it worked out. I think it worked out in a big way. Now my matchups, you know, I started off the weekend with a win against Bravo. That was a big moment because I was like, okay, I can beat Bravo because it is a tough matchup. And then round 2 I lost to a Bravo. So it's funny. My only 2 losses were to Bravo, but I did beat one. So I'll take that. I'll take the 33% win rate against a deck like that. I played against 2 Kanos, and I did beat them, which was exciting. And after I beat the first one, I realized what I had to do. And this is not any deep level strategies. Like, go really fast, try to present lethal, and make them make the play, right? You gotta put the ball in their court in a way. And I did that both times, and it worked out. You know, they were off by 1, you know, et cetera, et cetera. That was cool. I played against some ninjas. I played against one Rhinar, Sin from Green Tree and his channel. And, it worked out. I think the matches were good. I was very fortunate to not run into Dromai. I think Dromai would have been a big hindrance there. And, I thought I had a chance to make top 8 when I won my last round. But, it's just tough with there was a lot of 6-2s. So it just, I thought that me losing to Michael, who was in top 8, would have been helpful. But I don't understand tiebreakers, to be honest. I don't think I ever will. It always seems like it's something that doesn't add up, but it doesn't matter. I was 13th, so I wasn't even close. So shows what I know. But it went well. I was very happy with it, and it was a nice little bit of validation, because as a content creator, we make content, and sometimes it feels like maybe we don't have the juice to back it up, right? And it's nice to kind of get a little bit of that respect, and so on and so forth. It was a fun weekend, though.
Yeah, for sure. I can underline that, man. I'm really happy for you, and I'm super happy that you now are talking in more detail about it too. But maybe any of the viewers can comment down below about that tiebreaker thing, because I'm not getting it too. So maybe we can learn something here.
I know it has something to do with when you lost, and I lost round 2, and then I lost like round 5. So it wasn't. I understand that it wasn't in a great spot, but both of my opponents that I lost to were right there, top 8 and I think top 16s. I was like, maybe it helps, but yeah, who knows, right? Yeah, comment down below. Get the algorithm going.
Yeah, right. So let's jump into the third topic now. And I think you are one of the best persons to answer this, because like you said, you already got 100 games on with Riptide. What actually is Riptide lacking to compete more often?
Oh, geez, this is a tough question. I don't know. To be honest, it's illusionist is actually, I wouldn't even say illusionist. I would say it's really some barriers of entry, and there's also, I think there's some cognitive dissonance here with the cards they print for Riptide. What do you want us to do with this deck? Because when I look at it, right, you look at the real end, the card that's going to come out in the expansion slot for heavy hitters. It's this blue instant. It's like almost like Sonata, where you can like dig for traps. So yeah, like we have this trap theme, but there's so many matchups where traps don't do anything. Like, I mean, Dromai and Kano, I keep saying those two, but those are the two big ones. Just like these traps aren't doing anything. It almost looks like they're like, hey, set up this like really cool pitch stack deck where you can kind of burn out people with these traps. And it does work. I've seen people do it. I've done it too with like more grindier versions of the deck. But that's not a reliable game plan into the whole field. I think what Riptide's really missing is this is a really hard question to answer, because I feel like the deck is very good, but there are just moments of clunkiness just inherent with traps, right? Because you want to take tempo, right? and then if you do take tempo and then you draw a bunch of traps that are really good when they have the tempo, it creates this really clunky thing. So I don't know if there's anything. I think outside of like outside factors, I don't think there's anything that is preventing Riptide in its core design from being like really great. I think once Dromai leaves, to be honest, I think it looks even better. So that's where I see it, but it's just modern flesh and blood design, which I think is actually a good thing, where you have these heroes that can do really powerful things like Riptide, like Dash IO, where super powerful, can do awesome things, can really like operate in the game on a different axis, but there's variance and it's going to be swingy. Sometimes you do high roll, sometimes you do low roll. High rolling and low rolling is not just for brute anymore. They're going to print heroes that it's not, you can't just, stick to this like really solid game plan and everything should go right. So I think it's just modern flesh and blood. And as the old guard kind of moves out, decks like Riptide, Dash IO, Max, boost decks in general, I would say, and even things like Arachne will start to look, a little bit better.
All right, so I'm pretty stoked to see in the future what Riptide players will come up with. I didn't play him myself, so I can't really contribute to that discussion, but if any of the viewers have something to say to that, definitely keep in the discussion in the comments. And let's come to the last topic for us. Actually, I want to talk about heavy hitters with you, because what makes you excited about heavy hitters? Because you said it already, you are playing Brood kinda often.
Mm-hmm. Well, I love game design, right? I'm fascinated with it. Like, I look at stuff and I'm like, well, I like kind of figure out what their thought process was. And brute design has been kind of, for a while, right? Levia stuff and Rhinar stuff, with some like kind of variations here and there. In the supplemental sets, they'll throw Rhinar some possible other ways to play the game. And I'm really excited in heavy hitters to see where they take brute design next, right? What did they do with 6 power? Like, obviously they're going to do something that has to do with 6 power. I mean, it would be pretty crazy if they didn't, but I want to see where they take that. And if they can create a world where brute, because there's like two, it's just like a one or the other with brute. It feels like it's either this is the most unfair thing you could do in the game, like Rhinar intimidating your whole hand and then attacking and you have nothing to do about it, or like Levia with these like really crazy on like high rate cards that the only cost is you got to be able to banish 3 cards from your graveyard. So I want to see them kind of like get into the middle where it's like not feast or famine. I want to see a little bit more of a, I don't know, it's still fun. Like, we always want these heroes to be fun, but not so I am doing something crazy and it either works or it doesn't. So I want something that bridges that gap. So that's what I'm really excited about for heavy hitters. This is the first new brute we've gotten since Monarch, and yeah, that's the old guard of Flesh and Blood. We're into the new guard, and I'm really excited to see what they come up with.
So the theme of the set is pretty clear for everyone, but what do you imagine the new brutes looking like in the arena?
Oh, this is interesting because I think a brute can be anything, right? But I believe we're getting 6 heroes, so I imagine 2 of them are going to be brutes. I would like to see another brute from the Savage Lands kind of come into the fray, these orcish kind of characters. I would like to also see maybe a more human looking version of a brute, because certainly, I mean, a human could be very brutish, and there's no reason, like, you look at, I don't know, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson could play a brute in the Flesh and Blood movie. I think so. Like, it would be cool to see like some just totally jacked up dude or gal who just like is like a brute, but like is just like, I don't know. I think that would be pretty cool. So I'm hoping that they play around with not just orc and then like evil, shadow stuff. Like, obviously we've seen Levia. So something a little bit different. And then design wise, I think they're going to play a lot with the clash mechanic that we saw, and then wager's obviously going to be throughout it. And we saw I think what runner cares about the having go again and then creating agility tokens. Maybe brute's just like, 6s with go again, like maybe that's what they want it to be, and into a weapon. And that was a brute warrior card. Maybe that's what they want both warrior and brute to do. It's like, hey, big attack, finish with a weapon. Like, that might be kind of where they're going. So I'm really interested to see where they go. Spoiler season can't come soon enough.
Yeah, exactly. I'm super stoked for it too. So besides the design, what else do you think will be included in heavy hitters that you want to see?
Outside of design, I think so. I think we want to see Jarl, the guardian with the horns. I think that is pretty across all of Flesh and Blood. I can't imagine anybody who wouldn't be stoked to see what this big guardian with horns looks like. So definitely interested in seeing Jarl, hopefully in the Flesh and Blood, and then also I want to see like more like fun mechanics. Like I know we're getting Clash and Wager. I think that is very fun, but like I want to see like fun Majestics, right? Not just overpowered. Like I don't think we need new codexes, although it would be cool to get a brute codex.
Yeah.
But like something that's like, wow, this is like a crazy build around, right? Like I think a really cool build around is a way. It's like, yeah, I think Berserk's a good example of that. So more stuff like Berserk. So I think cool Majestic build arounds would be really neat.
All right. So let's round up our topics then. And imagine you have one last tip or topic, however you want to treat it, down lying in your arsenal. And you can reveal this one now to the viewers at the end of the video.
What? Okay, I have one topic. Oh, geez. Let's talk about the rotation, like midweek rotation of heroes. And I want to know a little bit about your thoughts, and I'll give you my thoughts after that.
Oh, yeah.
That? What do you think about this? Like these Living Legends, it hits on the weekend, you're done. It's not legal the next weekend.
That's a really interesting one. I mean, the next year will be the first one that we see this being legal for the whole year, right? I mean, we kind of saw the impact in the last weeks. And I'm not a player that is playing every week at an armory, so I'm not that controversial on it, I think, because it doesn't really impact me as much as a player that is really going from week to week and thinking about, okay, I have my deck, I have my strategy, I'm taking it on. But what I really see is like that, especially in Blitz, we saw a few heroes really go to Living Legend. And I'm really curious to see in the next year how fast that will go and how that impacts like the local meta. Because at least here in my place, we are like having all the formats rotating throughout the months, so we can play every format. And I kind of wish that just like heroes like Ira, that your favorite hero is coming back at some point if they go. Because now when I'm thinking about it, like I really like to play Ira, and for sure I hope she's coming back, right? I can just imagine like when you play every week at your armory, and then your most favorite hero is gone, that you kind of have this feeling in a more deep way.
Yeah. I hope. I think you're hitting on something with the replacement heroes. I also hope that they kind of do a good job with it. Like we've seen a replacement for Prism, we've seen a replacement for Chain. Now, those are interesting ones because Chain and Prism were so powerful, right? Now, Vincent and New Prism are, I think they have a lot of potential. They're just not going to be Chain and Prism. Now, as I think Lexi is a good example of a hero that you can print a new version of that will make sense and be close in power level, but not quite as strong, and will be playable, right? And like, I don't think you like the card pool there is good enough that you can just print a elemental ranger, I would hope, and it work out. So yeah, that's interesting. And then the week thing is a little tough. I mean, right? Because Blitz, especially with skirmish, a lot of those heroes were right on the cusp anyway, so they were on their way out, and it just took one skirmish season. I doubt. I mean, I imagine we'll see something in the next skirmish season, LL, in that season.
Yeah,
I'm interested to see how the next ProQuest season and the next RTN season go for CC. Yeah. Because that's going to be the biggest thing, because people invest a little bit more into CC, people and spend more money. Certainly, it's a bigger deck, right? It's just you kind of buy one more copy of everything, and it will be obviously all the high tier tournaments are CC. I like it. It's a little jarring at first to kind of understand, but I think if you're a player that's playing one of these heroes that's getting close, now you know that the writing's on the wall. So like,
yeah,
enjoy your time with the hero. You love the hero, right? That's the best thing about this game, and hope that they reprint some kind of new hero for you that you're also going to love. But also keep your options open, right? You know, if Levia or Riptide was about to LL, I would be like, well, I'm already looking at the next chapter. I think that's the best way to do it, because you get to experience the game more. I think experiencing the game at all angles is a good thing. I don't really particularly love Blitz, but hey, I still play it and I get to experience it, and I do have fun with it. But, you know, I think it's, you know, we're very lucky that this game has so many different aspects and different heroes and different things that you can do. And, you know, let's say you're on, well, you guess Dromai. Let's say you're on Dromai, right? You've been playing Dromai forever. Looking at you, Mara. And all of a sudden Dromai LLs. Now you get to look back, it's like, okay, well, what else would I like? Maybe not Prism, it's not the exact same. And then you get to look even further back and say, wow, I really loved Outsiders Draft. And I loved drafting Azuri. I'm going to learn how to play Azuri. Or I love drafting Riptide or anything like that. Katsu, doesn't matter. Then you get to kind of look back. It's like, okay, well, that was something so different than what I was doing. And I can look back on those moments fondly and hopefully build on that for the next hero that you kind of latch onto. That's what I would say.
Oh man, that's like, I think Dromai is such a great example here, because Dromai is, like Prism, such a unique hero that is not easy replaceable with a similar hero. Mm-hmm. And just like the other day, there were spoilers I saw from Yu-Gi-Oh! So I used to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Back then, and I was really loving the casual format, but Yu-Gi-Oh! Is not like multi-dimensional like Flesh and Blood. We have Blitz, we have Commoner, we have Classic Constructed, Living Legend, and you can play like throughout. And even though Yu-Gi-Oh! Has Time Wizard now, where you can play older formats, it's not like in Flesh and Blood where we get a new ban list for that or something like we just did in Living Legend. Mm-hmm. So they were announcing new cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! For Lightsworn. I'm not sure if you know that.
No, I actually don't.
Okay. I hope one of the viewers knows it, because there is a card called Judgment Dragon in it. And that's like one of my favorite cards from back in the days. And they are reprinting support for it. So now I was kind of looking at it. I'm like, yeah, man, I need to pick up my Lightsworn cards again and see what those new cards are doing. And I feel like with a deck like Dromai, it might be similar. Like when Dromai goes and we don't see a Draconic Illusionist for a while, like let's say a year or even two, mm-hmm. and then a new Draconic Illusionist comes out, these players that left Dromai behind or even leave the game will then for sure be drawn back into the game or back picking up the Tomultai and try to make it.
Yeah, well, that's the really cool thing, right? Like those players are going to flock back to Draconic Illusionist and hopefully stay with it. Maybe not, but they'll at least flock back to it initially. And then also, like we see it every single set release. People are obsessed with new heroes. They want to play with new heroes. You're going to get new fans from the people obsessed with new heroes, and you're going to get the old fans coming back. And yeah. I think that's kind of the cool thing about Flesh and Blood, right? That you get to kind of experience that. As long as they don't print a new Starvo, I think we're pretty we're pretty good.
Exactly, yeah. Oh man. Okay, so I think we can round it up now. And at the end, I really want to say that all the viewers go to the Fresh and Buds channel, leave some love there, and watch also the Riptide Decktech. And Tommy, thank you so much for coming on, taking the time, and spending it today with me.
No, absolutely, Alex. I mean, hey, listen, we got to get you on the podcast, you know, hopefully in 2024, probably sure. After Heavy Hitters happens. We got a busy couple weeks, I think. But I really appreciate it. You know, Alex is the best. Everybody knows that. You're watching. And, you know, but I appreciate it. It's really cool to hop on the channel. And you know, I've enjoyed watching your success over the years. And, you know, I'm excited to keep watching it grow. So thank you.
Oh, man, I got butterflies now. That's the best ending ever. Thanks.